Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have our next guest here joining us. Yeah, that's right. Our Diamond of the Decade, Jessica Smith Bumgarner, joining us here from Hickory, North Carolina. She is from Fry Regional Medical Center as a registered nurse, heart failure stroke coordinator, and health equity and diversity coordinator. She has been in the medical field for quite some time and, really is proactive in this field of helping so many. And she joins us today, and I want to thank you for being here. How's everything?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
All right. So you work over at Fry. Tell us a little bit about Fry for people that may not know who, what it entails. I've learned, I'm in the Northeast, I'm in New York, but thanks to you, I've learned now about a whole nother medical center and community that's helping people.
So Fry Regional Medical Center is in Hickory, North Carolina. We are actually owned by LifePoint Health, and we are one of the biggest hospitals that LifePoint owns. So we are a 355-bed acute care facility. So we have our emergency department, we have our inpatient units, and we actually have an inpatient rehab and a inpatient psych facility as well. I think our claim to fame, so to speak, is yak care and our neurospine care, both of which are programs that I work in. So for our heart programs, we have 24/7 coverage for any kind of cardiac intervention. So people that may be having a heart attack can come in and go to the cath lab and get stented to open up those blockages. We do have 24/7 coverage for open heart surgery as well, if that's a need for a patient that's coming in. For our neuro service line, we do have 24/7 coverage for any head bleeds or complex strokes, maybe you would say, that come in. That all of those patients can be seen. You can give them the medications they need. And for our strokes, we're also able to fly them out to higher level of care.
Beautiful. And let me just ask a question. Recently I live in New York on Long Island, and there was unfortunately a little boy who was only 9 or 10 years old who suffered cardiac arrest on the football field recently.
Mm-hmm.
And it just breaks my heart. Turns out he's okay. Thank goodness there was a defibrillator there. But this happens to people of all ages, right?
Mm-hmm. It does.
You think, heart attack, you think you have to be in your 60s or 70s. No, can you just share a little bit about the diagnosis and what age of people are affected by heart conditions?
Sure. And I think it's important to know that there's a difference between actual heart attack, which is a blockage that's in the heart that causes damage to the heart, and then cardiac arrest, which means that the heart actually stops for whatever reason. So a lot of these younger folks, so like the child that you're talking about, or I think notably that a lot of people still remember Damar Hamlin for the Bills, who had that cardiac arrest on the football field in an NFL game. I think that's been 2 years ago. So in those cardiac arrest situations, it's usually some kind of outside event, such as like with Damar Hamlin, he got hit in the chest, literally just like a split second of the perfect timing to cause a lethal arrhythmia that made his heart stop. That same thing could have happened to this 9 or 10-year-old little boy that you're talking about. Got hit at the wrong time in the chest, and it interrupted the sequence of that electrical current in which the heart beats. And sometimes we'll see in middle school or high school kids, unfortunately, we have them do medical screening and get clearance from their primary care to be able to play sports. And sometimes they don't pick up on certain like minor arrhythmias or maybe a murmur that they hear. And those things can develop over time as well. And so those are kids that we see that sometimes have that cardiac arrest too. So usually our younger folks or athletes that have an arrest situation where they require CPR or defibrillation, like you mentioned with an AED, it's not because of a blockage in the heart. It's something up to that electrical signal. So for a lot of the patients that I see, they have a heart attack. So there's actually a blockage. It could either be plaque that has built up in the heart and it just narrows and narrows, and then it causes a blockage, or it could be a clot that gets in one of those arteries and causes an immediate obstruction of blood flow. All of those patients that have a heart attack, they don't necessarily have a cardiac arrest, but that's certainly something that could happen when you do have a heart attack, or you may hear it called an MI. So those are all things that we watch those patients for very carefully. Typically, our heart attack patients, they stay in the hospital anywhere from 2 to 5 days, depending upon the severity of the heart attack and what kind of interventions they have to have. But really, we could see heart patients from birth until 120 years old, based on if it's something that's lifestyle created, if it's something that hereditary from their family genes, or if it's something congenital that they've dealt with since birth.
Thank you for clarifying that. Because when you hear heart, again, someone like me, not in the medical field, I'm assuming that's a heart attack. It's not. Thank you for clarifying that. Right. But in heart conditions like this, you're at Fry, right? You're working with so many people of all ages to help in the cardiac unit. And I want to point out that this is part of Duke LifePoint Healthcare, correct? Could you share? You have quite a few medical centers, right?
We do. So LifePoint has multiple facilities, and what they've done is partner with Duke for quality metrics, so to speak. So I always tell folks that LifePoint is our payer and Duke is our quality. So all LifePoint hospitals do not have that Duke name associated with them. It's only ones that have high quality measures and a certain standard of care able to be Duke LifePoint. And we are fortunate enough that we have run our hospital a certain way and to certain standards that we are Duke LifePoint.
Thank you for sharing that. And by the way, how do we contact you and Fry Medical Center? Could you just share a little bit of that? All the ways, website or phone number?
So for me, my email is jbumgarner, BUMGARNER, .RN@gmail.com. And on Instagram, I am MS_Jess23. And if you have questions about Fry Regional Medical Center, you can Google us and we'll come up, or our website is frymedcenter.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And did you want to share more about, the work you're doing, the outreach, with Fry? And you mentioned before, so you're in a family of medicine. You said your husband's a surgeon. Is that okay for me to ask?
Yes, that's fine. So he actually is an interventional pulmonologist, and he does critical care as well. So a lot of what he does is lung cancer, so a biopsy of nodules to determine if it's cancer or not. And then he does a lot of bronchoscopy to clean out the lungs, and different procedures to help with the eradication of lung cancer. So we tell people that, anything from to the bottom of the rib cage, if something happens there, one of us can probably fix it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness. Well, this is fascinating that you clearly love what you do. You've been recognized with Who's Who, and, the facility itself has been recognized worldwide, and all it does. Mm-hmm. What else for today, Jessica, did you want to share with your audience?
So I think I just wanted people to know that, for one, a career in nursing can start at any age. I know that sometimes it could seem intimidating just with the clinicals and the bookwork and the tests and various things, but just know if that's something that you're passionate about, that it's never too late to get started. I always tell people, too, care is ever-changing, but I feel like you always have job security. So if you're looking for that stability in a job, healthcare is definitely the way to go. We are increasingly using lots of AI and different ways to do things, even from the 15 years that I've been in healthcare. So it's very interesting and I think encouraging and exciting to see where healthcare is moving and all of the different things that we have to help people and to catch disease processes earlier and earlier. If you notice, a lot of folks, they live longer than they did before, even with a lot of different chronic health conditions. And that's because we do have this advanced technology, advanced medication regimens that help people live longer with chronic diseases like heart failure.
Is there any statistics that you could share with us? Any prevention? What are we doing wrong as Americans? Is it true we are the most obese, country? Are we seeing more heart conditions in the U.S. compared to any other countries?
Yes, so it is true. The U.S. does have the highest obesity rate of any country, and that is just projected to continue to rise. I think the biggest things that contribute to chronic disease with the heart, so that's heart failure, a lot of heart attacks from those blockages and things. So you can't really get away from your genetics, right? So your family history is kind of your family history. That's something that we can't influence. But maintaining a healthy weight, staying active, not smoking, and one of the big things that I always highlight as a preventative measure is controlling your blood pressure. So if you do have high blood pressure, getting to your primary care or a cardiologist and getting on the right kind of medications to control that is one of the biggest things you can do to help protect your heart. Over time, if you have a high blood pressure that remains untreated, the heart does what we call remodeling. So it changes the actual shape and size of itself in order to meet the demands of the body. So what we don't want is for that to happen, because then the heart muscle can stretch, it can become weak, and then we end up in a state of heart failure. So I think if you control your weight, control your blood pressure, you don't smoke, those are the biggest three things that you can do for your heart health.
About our diet, I mean, it starts, as children, what we're eating, what we're not eating. We're eating too much. What is affecting the heart? Too much? What type of fats?
Absolutely.
What are we doing wrong?
So most of our heart patients, we recommend, it's called a DASH diet, which a lot of folks just call the heart healthy diet. So it limits a lot of the trans fats, it limits a lot of processed foods, and the salt content of foods. So those things alone, if you avoid, can help to reduce your weight, reduce your blood pressure, reduce your cholesterol, and really overall the big picture of what your cardiac health is. So it's not that you can't ever have those things, but it's all about moderation, right? So if you want a Big Mac one day, that's fine, but it can't be every day. It shouldn't be every week. But it's just limiting those high-fat, high cholesterol foods so that the heart can stay clean and work efficiently. So if you think about the pistons in a car, right, we keep them lubricated with oil. We do that car maintenance so that they don't get gummed up and they don't hang up, and our car stays healthy so that it's working and it's reliable. And it's the same thing for the heart. You want to put, quote-unquote, good fuel into the body so that everything stays working the way that it should, that it's functioning appropriately, and you get kind of that clean burn, if you will, for the heart.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you so much. As an expert in the field, I would love to chat more. We just have to take a quick commercial break. Would you mind sharing how we can reach out to you?
Sure. My email is jbumgarner, BUMGARNER.RN@gmail.com, and you can find me on Instagram, MS_Jess23.
You don't become a 117-year-old automaker in this country by refusing to change. The Ford Motor Company does not resist, deny, or ignore change. We pledge to make our most iconic vehicles electric, to use 100% renewable energy across all global manufacturing plants by 2035, to stand for lower greenhouse gas emissions, to stand with Americans and for the planet.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
My dad used to say that.
Sure, yeah. It's from Geico.
Yeah, whenever I would ask my dad for life advice, he'd sit me down and say, son, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. And look at me now, a well-adjusted adult with a drawer full of plastic bags I'll never use.
Okay, I'm confused. Was your dad a licensed Geico agent?
Nah, he was just a real good dad.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the mytuner-radio, online radio box, and simpleradio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Hey, do you want to know the secret to self-confidence, self-love, and self-awareness? Well, Your thoughts, like everything in the universe, are energy. They vibrate at different frequencies depending on the nature of your thought. When you decide to change your level of consciousness, your outside circumstances will change drastically. I am Sandra Robinson, founder of BeyondFocus.org. As a personal development life coach with years of experience, I will help you explore how to refocus and realign your life with certainty. Remember, you are just one choice away from achieving your dreams.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. Our Diamond of the Decade joining us, Jessica Smith Bumgarner, our who's who from Fry Regional Medical Center as a registered nurse, heart failure, stroke coordinator, also health equity and diversity coordinator. She joins us live today here from her hometown in North Carolina, discussing, the work she does and the benefits about those that receive care from Fry Regional Medical Center. So welcome back. Can I just ask you about the other side of things? What's the equity and diversity coordinator? Could you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So one of the Joint Commission requirements that started just this year is to make sure that every hospital is assessing their community and identifying a target population that is diverse, that may be underserved, and coming up with a plan of how we're going to make healthcare accessible for that group of people, and how we're going to ensure that they have the best care possible. So at Fry, our focus group is African Americans with diabetes who have been readmitted to the hospital within 30 days. And what we do with those patients is kind of an extensive deep dive when they're admitted to see what brought you back to the hospital. Was there anything that you were discharged on medication-wise that you couldn't afford? Do you have accessibility to clean water? Do you have a home? Do you have transportation to follow-up appointments? And can you get your medication? So we try to do a little extra education about disease process with these patients, and we try to make sure that they're on medications that are right for them. So meeting the patient where they are. And if they don't have the means to be able to pay for those medications, making sure that we get them connected with the right programs, either in the drug industry world or in our community, that can help provide them so that they have the best quality of life possible.
And you've been in this field for how long?
So I guess I've really been in the area of equity, diversity, and health ethics for about 5 years. So while we didn't have a formal program per se until the last year, it's something that we certainly keep forefront of our mind. And something that we're aware of, that we have these health disparities in certain groups in our community. So the last 5 years really has been our focus that has shifted to helping vulnerable populations.
And clearly you love the work you're doing. What would you say is the most rewarding part of it?
I think my favorite part of this job is when we have patients that, were critically ill, that we had questions if they were even going to survive and be able to leave the hospital. When they either come back after they've been discharged and, they kind of, build up their stamina and their health enough to come back and say thank you, or when those patients get home and they call me and tell me how well they're doing. So I think just to see the fruits of our labor and those stories that really are miracles that these people have survived and then, can live to tell their story and to encourage others. I think that's what makes it worth it for me.
And now, with the work you're doing and helping so many, could you share a client story or two without using their name about the benefits of, your work there and the hospital really helping someone, that's come in?
Sure. So I'll give you a heart failure story first. This is one of my favorite ones. So I have done cardiac nursing the whole 15 years of my career that I have been at Fry. In the last 8 years, I have been the heart failure coordinator, so I really get to hone in on that heart failure population. With heart failure, it is a chronic progressive disease, so it's not quite like a heart attack where we see the patient, we fix the blockage, they go on their way, and, they may never be a patient here again, if all goes as planned. with heart failure, these are the patients we see over and over, it seems like, because that heart function does get worse over time. They have more hospitalizations. And heart failure is actually the number one admitter for Medicare patients. So if you think about folks over the age of 65, heart failure is the most likely diagnosis to land you in the hospital. So I had this gentleman who was in his 90s at the time, and I had known him for the entire time I had been here at Fry. He was a heart failure patient, came in a lot. His wife had passed away years ago. He lived alone. So when you think about all the things that you do to help prevent a heart failure readmission, you eat foods that are low in salt. You watch your fluid restriction. You make sure and avoid processed and canned foods. For him, that wasn't really the best option because he was older in age. He didn't have a support system, and he was alone. So he ate what he could get a hold of, which a lot of times was canned foods and frozen meals, and it continually made him retain fluid and that heart function to worsen. So I just remember the last Christmas that he was actually alive, he was our hospital, and he had elected to go home with hospice because his heart function had gotten so bad. And that Christmas, my husband and I actually went to his assisted living and spent Christmas Day with him. So we took him some food from our family's gathering. I wanted him to have a Christmas present to open and just to know that he was important, because I feel like everybody should have somebody, and especially on Christmas, these times of year where, you really want it to be special and you want to know that you're cared about and loved by someone. So that was his last Christmas, and I felt like we really made an impact on him. And the only family he really had was the staff at the hospital that he had grown so close to. So the patients like that are the ones that I do this for, that I've known for so long, and they become like your second family, and they have a little piece of your heart whenever they leave you.
Beautiful. And, to be here, I love that you're giving your time with us here on the phone today. What is a normal day like for you, Jessica?
Oh, boy. Well, normal is an eye of the beholder, I suppose, because every day changes. So even the best laid plans usually get construed somehow. But usually what I try to do is I come in about 7:30, and I'll look through any of the patients that came in during the night while I was gone, and I pick out any of those that are heart failure or any of those that may potentially have had a stroke. And then I go see those patients one-on-one. I introduce myself, I do a little education, and I let them know that whenever they go home, that I'll be calling them to check up on them. So I'm going to be their resource person when they leave. Then after that, I go to meetings and do my paperwork. But after lunch, I start making phone calls. So anyone that left the day before, I call to make sure they got their medicines, they understand their discharge instructions, they know when they're supposed to go to the doctor for follow-up. And if they have any questions, I answer those and get them, set up to have the best chance for success when they have left. Every month we have different meetings for our heart failure and our stroke programs. So I facilitate those. So it kind of depends, on the day, a meeting like that. And then all of our post-acute services, so those are things like home health, skilled nursing, even if the patient goes home with oxygen or a new CPAP, all of those companies and partners, they come through me as well for these patients. So I have a lot of touch points with them during the week just to make sure that we're all kind of preaching the same message, so to speak, to these patients, so that they get consistent education about what they should watch for, who they should contact for what. So it's a lot of communication, a lot of community education as well. So we do have some events on the weekends and after hours where we educate the community on the importance of early recognition of heart attacks and stroke. So it's a lot of community involvement, I would say, and a lot of talking to patients to help prevent readmission.
Thank you so much. It's an honor having you here, and hopefully we will get to chat again soon. Jessica Smith, Bumgarner, tell us how we can reach out to you.
So you can reach me by email at jbumgarner, BUMGARNER.RN@gmail.com, or on Instagram, ms_Jess23.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here, for joining us, and thank you for doing what you do in the healthcare field and helping so many, again, as our Diamond of the Decade. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Enjoy the rest of your day. And to all of our listeners, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.